James Lee, superintendent of the Paradise Valley Unified School District. You know, one of the things that concerns me greatly when people talk about the public education system in Arizona, the fact of the matter is our academic system, public education, is not in a poor state. We are financially poor, but our test scores nationally are, well, they're not at the bottom of the barrel, but they are below average. But compared to our funding, we are the most efficient, educationally efficient state in this country, based on the amount of money that we receive for public education and test scores that we put out with our students. The other thing that concerns me is when we're asked to be compared to other states across this country, to states where funding is double or even more than what we're currently receiving. We visited a school district in Virginia, and it was a middle school, about 700 kids. And I remember walking into that school with some colleagues, taking a look at just the front office where I saw a principal, 2 assistant principals, a dean of students, and about 4 counselors. That is twice the staffing that we have in our front office, not to mention plenty of clerical help beyond what we have in our schools. And then I was walking in the classrooms, and we were told that student-to-teacher ratio maximum was 20-1. And I visited at least a dozen classrooms, and I didn't see one classroom with over 20 students in it. In fact, most of them were around 15 to 16. And on top of that, they had a curriculum specialist, a STEM specialist, and what they called a home liaison. It's a person on staff who, kind of a social worker, who works with families of students that aren't coming to school regularly. And those are all resources that we just don't have. And to try and compete nationally under those circumstances, I'm not going to say it's impossible, but it's pretty darn close to impossible. So we are put at a huge disadvantage to other states just based on our funding system. Lower administrative costs and higher classroom costs. And there's a perception that for some reason that Arizona is grossly overspending in the non-classroom category. Those things that are non-classroom are critical to the education of our students. I firmly believe in Arizona we cannot operate more efficiently. We have reached the maximum in terms of efficiency based on the budget that we've been getting. I can speak for other school districts too. But what we can do is operate more poorly. And we can shove 40 or 50 kids in a classroom. Right now, unfortunately, we're averaging 30, 35 kids in a classroom, and many classrooms have more than that based on the funding that we receive. I think people think of non-classroom things as, superintendents or administrators and things like that. But it's transportation, it's crossing guards, cafeteria workers, duty aides, security, assistant principals, liaison officers, all those things that are critical to our operation and critical to our students and their safety while they're on our campuses. It's a simple formula. You can either pay more people less or pay less people. It's as simple as that. And we've already, teachers in our district, all employees in our district are, for the most part, have the same paycheck in terms of the money they take home as they did 6-7 years ago. And that's unfortunate because we are losing some incredible educators because they can make a lot more money doing something else. And there also is not that stress that they feel every day to make the grade and to make sure that all of their kids, regardless who walks in their classroom, to making sure all those students are successful. It's an incredible, difficult task at times, and our teachers are faced with that burden. Every year that number grows, the number of teachers that leave the profession. This I can tell you right now, I believe we have approximately 30 vacancies still in our district of positions that we cannot fill. There's a teacher shortage crisis in Arizona, and until we're able to start paying teachers more, this is going to continue. Teachers go into the profession knowing they're never going to be millionaires, but they have to make enough money to put food on the table. You know, these are college-educated folks that want to make a career of this, and it's disheartening, and there's no light at the end of the tunnel in terms of that changing, and that's really unfortunate. And I think that is, I know that's the reason we are losing a lot of teachers. 38th in test scores in the nation, 48th, 49th, 50th, somewhere down there in terms of funding. So what would it take to raise that? Well, the focus has to be on early education, especially when you're talking about an increasing poverty rate among youth. We have to get kids educated as soon as possible and as early as possible. The earlier they are exposed to some basic educational information and stimuli, the more likely they are to succeed in school as they get older. Arizona does not fund full-day kindergarten. Our legislature has determined we don't need to fund a full day of kindergarten. So we're using other resources to provide a full day of kindergarten for our students. Some districts haven't been able to do that, and they're actually charging parents for that extra half day of kindergarten. So not only should we be funding full day kindergarten, we should have preschool programs that we can provide our students that are free of charge to our students, so that we can get them in school early, get them learning at an early age, and increase their opportunities to be successful. If we are to compete, we need to be able to have a maximum of 20 kids per class. If as a teacher, I only have 18 or 20 kids to teach and that I'm focused on and I'm responsible for, compared to 35, that's a huge disparity that we're seeing from Arizona to other states, and not to mention the other resources at the schools to help the kids. That's a really good question. When the 2008 override failed, all employees across the district took a 2.62% pay cut, all employees across the district, on top of other cuts that were made in terms of programs and staffing and so on and so forth. So it was a pretty significant and painful time. My first year as superintendent, I remember walking into a situation where employees were not happy that they had just taken a 2.62% pay cut. Fortunately, we were able to restore that after the override passed the next year, but that was the results. That's how important those overrides are to our district. I think generally our challenge as a school district is to educate the community. For some reason, and I think the media, no offense, I think the media plays into this a little bit, and certainly our state policymakers, that there's a lot of waste in education. And I have to tell you, that's ridiculous. There is not a lot of waste, and we, as districts across the state, we're down to our bare bones in terms of resources and just trying to make ends meet. The public hears that, and the large percentage of people that don't have kids in schools and have to vote for these initiatives, they don't understand the need. If it means that they have to pay more taxes, then obviously that's something they're not going to be real excited about doing or supporting. Fortunately, this past fall, across the state, there was great success on bonds and overrides. But the few districts that didn't pass them, I will quote one superintendent who said to me, "I don't know what we're going to do." And there was a time, 10 years ago, if you didn't pass a bond or an override, you could get by. You could move money around and shift resources and make it work, but we're beyond that point now.